right. So I'm being joined by my panelists on stage. We're going to be talking about human-centered design in our smart city. So over at the end, we have Pat Sappensley, the Managing Director of Clean Tech Initiatives at the NYU Tandon School of Engineering. Next to her, we have the CEO of GoZone Wi-Fi, Todd Myers. And then right next to me, we have another Aaron Burnt, the head of Central Region Energy Partnerships at Google. So first of all, thank you all for being here today. And I wanted to start this conversation. We've heard this idea of human-centered design throughout the conference so far, yesterday and some of today. So Pat, starting with you, could you tell us in your own words what you think human-centered design means?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. But first, I want to tell people who I am and what I do.
Of course.
So that it's less confusing for everyone. My name is Pat Sappensley, and thank you. You pronounced it correctly. Well done. I do run the Urban Future Lab at NYU. That is a climate change organization that's biggest effort is the incubator that we support. We have incubated 50 companies since 2009 who are all working on market-ready solutions to climate change, because this is not going to happen unless these solutions appeal to the market and somebody can make some money doing it. We also have an educational program. We also have 2 new accelerators that we've just started, one with Toyota, Shell, and Fraunhofer Institute, who's here. That's an H2 refuel program that is looking for young hydrogen technologies for vehicles. And the other is a piloting project, an accelerator that's going to find young companies to do new EV technologies and new storage technologies for one of the New York utilities. So those are generally the programs that we do. I can tell you more as other questions come up. And when Aaron asked about human-centric, you know, most of our companies are in the smart city area, right? A smart city is a more efficient city. So you have to think about what the very first job is of civic government. What is city government supposed to do? It's supposed to help its citizenry, right? That is the #1 only reason to have government in the first place. So just coming back 1,000 feet and not looking at exactly the data issues or any of the issues individually, the big issue is actually, for citizens in a city, is the social cost of carbon. What will a city do for us when we have floods, when we have other disasters, storms, when there's food insecurity, when there are transportation issues? What will the city do for us? So from my point of view, the best way to do human-centric design from a city point of view is to fix climate change and prepare for these problems and solve these problems from the city level. So that's what I'm thinking of.
Thank you, Pat. And Todd, tell us a little bit about what you do and then how you view human-centered design.
So GoZone Wi-Fi, we're based in St. Petersburg, Florida. We're a software company, and we create platforms that monetize Wi-Fi networks. So when we look at human-centered, you know, traditionally everybody's got a mobile device these days. Handhelds, tablets, everything, you know, but at the center of that is the human. The human needs access to that device, but in order for that device to work these days, it has to be connected. So one of the initiatives that we're working on is in our city district, there's not enough money, if you will, in the city coffers to support a full Wi-Fi initiative to have Wi-Fi around the city. So what we did is partnered with business improvement districts to bring free Wi-Fi everywhere within a district in a city. I mean, right now there's Wi-Fi, but it's difficult to get access to. I went, as an example, last night to the Riverwalk. I could see 30 or 40 different networks, but I couldn't attach to one of them because they were all password protected. They're all different. One block, you go from one block to the next block, it's all different. So that detracts from the ability for humans to be able to attach to it when you have to always ask for passwords everywhere you go. So that's what our initiative does is, you know, we're solving the problem to make it easy for everybody to use in a district or in an area, whether they're a visitor, a resident, you know, anybody that has a Wi-Fi enabled device. And that's really what we're focused on, you know, and centering again around the human. It's getting that human online so they can do things, and that leads to education and job applications are filled out. I mean, everything is internet-based these days. So that's what we're working on.
Great, thank you. And Aaron?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Aaron Burnt with Google. For those who don't know, the Nest team sort of formally merged within Google Hardware early last year. And so I came from the Nest team, so the vast majority of my work to date has been working with our energy partnerships around what smart thermostats can help do to accelerate their energy efficiency, demand response program. We have a program with CPS Energy that we've worked closely with them for a very long time around demand response. And for what I'll be talking about today is a specific initiative that we launched within Nest called the Power Project. And so to me and to our team, what we really focused on with the human-centered design is really putting people first and specific outcomes that we were trying to accomplish with our partners kind of front and center, and then backing into the right solutions to be going after. So the Power Project is really meant to help solve what we framed as energy poverty. So 1 in 4 Americans are eligible for home energy assistance, low to moderate income customers, and the average energy user spends roughly average around 3% of their income on energy spend. Once it gets closer to like 6 to 10%, you're reaching into the area where it's starting to become unattainable, and where for folks that are on the 150% of the poverty line, they're spending anywhere from 20 to 50% of their income on energy. So from Nest, really from the get-go, a key part of what we were setting out to accomplish was to help enable energy savings at scale. And the Power Project is really meant to kind of tie that to all sorts of different either local weatherization programs or utility low-income programs to really help accelerate and enable those customers to be reducing their usage and really opening up that capability.
Thank you. So I want to start off talking about what has been covered a lot today, is this transition to try to move away from vendors just pushing products onto cities and making people central in those products again. So Pat, how can you make people more central in the design of products that are being used within cities today?
So we offer, many of the products we offer, and these are not always products. Sometimes it's a business model innovation. Sometimes it's an interesting new use of data analytics. But some of the products that our companies offer, we have 17 currently in the incubator, are very focused on the need of everything's focused on the need of the people, as I said before, but needs of people who are sometimes overlooked. For instance, we have 2 companies doing community solar in our incubator now. One is called the Power Market. In New York City, first of all, the buildings they have a floor area ratio that's very tall and narrow. So to put solar on the top of a skyscraper is ridiculous. Most people are not homeowners. Most people are renters. So solar is not really an option, certainly in Manhattan. In some of the outer boroughs it is. But where most of the population lives, you're either in very tall buildings or you're not a homeowner, you're a renter. So community solar is a very good solution for people, for Joe guy on the street or Jane girl on the street. You too can own solar or use solar or buy from solar in any one of a number of mechanisms. The most popular one is the community solar mechanism that Power Market offers. So they'll find a developer to put a solar installation on the roof of a huge warehouse building out in the Bronx somewhere, where we have these giant 2-story buildings, some of which are still doing manufacturing and warehousing, some of which are empty. They'll find a developer who will put the panels on there, and they'll sell, they will sign up, they'll do the customer acquisition, which is huge, to get individuals to buy their power from that installation, and it makes the individuals feel like, yes, I can participate in this new market. I don't own a home, but I can buy solar. And of course, the solar does go directly to the utility, and the utility then redistributes it. But the homeowner feels they're buying solar. We have another one called Resonant Community Solar. And Resonant puts community solar installations on top of churches, on top of New York City Housing Authority buildings. These are buildings that don't need the tax rebate or tax credit. And they sell that to individuals who do, and then they give 10% of the power to the host building as rent. So it's a very interesting community mechanism that gives people solar and allows organizations that would not normally have solar to put solar on their roofs. We have another one called Dollar Ride. Dollar Ride takes, in New York City, there are transportation deserts in spite of the fact that we have a great public transportation system. If you live in far out Brooklyn and you work in far out Queens, you can't get from here to there. All the subways take you into Manhattan and then back out again. It takes forever. So a lot of those people end up buying cars or using a car service, which is a single occupant in a single car, and that's crazy. We don't like that. So our guy has come up with something called Dollar Van. These are white vans that do a route that will take people back and forth to transportation hubs. And if you're too far away from a transportation hub, he'll take you to the Brooklyn terminal, the Atlantic terminal in Brooklyn, or one of the big terminals so that you can get many different subway lines. And this way, people are not using private cars. They're paying very little. There are 17 or 20 people that fit in a van. He can optimize his routes because he's put it all on a smartphone. Many of the people who are traveling to those jobs do have smartphones. They can pay in cash, but smartphones seem to be the preferred method. So he's providing a service that is sorely needed. It keeps a lot of cars off the street.
So Todd, it sounds like a lot of what Pat is talking about is access to providing people access to certain technologies that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have access to. And that's largely kind of what you focus on is the digital divide and getting people more access to information. So how can we in cities design, or how can cities be more aware or cognizant when they're purchasing products to actually solve some of that issue around the digital divide and access to information?
So, I mean, it's important to realize that the cities and communities have access to utility poles, et cetera, but that's not necessarily everywhere, or city parks, or libraries, or community centers, or city hall. But people generally congregate, in other areas as well. It could be a restaurant district, or a district where there's an event hall or something, even outside here. So Wi-Fi has to be ubiquitous everywhere, and it has to be easy to access and easy to use. And when I mean ubiquitous, it means not passwords everywhere, every time you walk from one block to the other. The digital divide really is still very much, the world is still definitely divided, even more, I think, now than it was even 10 years ago when people were still talking about it, because everything now has become digital, from, like I said, job applications, et cetera. So we need to have easy access to Wi-Fi or internet access everywhere, and the preferred method these days is Wi-Fi. Not everybody has data plans. You might have a plan that has terrible signal, or it's congested in a particular area. So that's where Wi-Fi really solves that problem. Or in lower economically challenged, they may not have even a computer anymore, or a home to be able to put internet access. But they may have an Android device, as an example, in their pocket that doesn't have service, but it can get access to the internet as long as there's easy Wi-Fi. So it's those type programs that we're trying to promote really within a lot of different organizations, whether it be the city or business improvement districts or Main Street districts, et cetera, to get everybody involved in it to make this pervasive.
Aaron, reverting back to, again, what Pat was talking to, a more focus on energy, what are you guys doing in terms of trying to understand how people are interacting and using certain technologies and creating better experiences for them?
So our team spent a lot of time really digging into, one, the data around low to moderate income energy usage and really the opportunity that we saw with our new lower cost thermostat. So part of, we've had this vision from the get-go to drive energy savings at scale, but when you launch a company around a premium thermostat, even just the optics didn't quite fit within getting slotted into a lot of those weatherization programs. So last year, in 2017, we launched the Thermostat E, and it was right around that same time where we were digging into the data around how can we be really unlocking and scaling and to really provide access to the thermostat savings technology that we've been talking about. And so we've been doing multiple different things. One, it's obviously an initiative that I've been talking about, but it's also a big campaign and a storytelling and to really personalize the types of customers that we're talking about. So I mentioned as 1 in 4. That's not that atypical of your neighbor or your friends. It's really just taking a lot of the stigma of that and bringing those stories front and center to help connect the dots between creating kind of that discussion with our partners and then how to really accelerate that even with donations from the general public to help along that as well. So in addition to the campaign, we're essentially making those thermostats available essentially at cost to weatherization programs, utility programs for their low to moderate income programs, and then look for other ways that we can really help accelerate the adoption. So whether it's their specific energy efficiency targets or demand management capabilities, or even just kind of enabling those customers to be successful in the new energy economy as time of use rates roll out, all those kind of capabilities.
One thing that I think kind of gets lost at times is the disconnect, or there can be a disconnect between the objective of the project and kind of the start of it, kind of getting the ball rolling, and where is it going to be in 5 to 10 years, and what do you hope to achieve from that initiative? So Pat, you talked a little bit about some of the projects that you guys have going on, but can you talk about some of the benefits you expect to see in cities from the result of some of these projects you have going on?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned, the social cost of carbon is what motivates us. And that cost is borne by taxpayers. It's borne by the government. It's borne by the health service. It's borne by, everyone. It's going to cost everyone. So we're hoping, we don't look out 5 years. We look out 50 years. We're hoping that by scaling up many different types of technologies and business model innovations that deal in this area, that it's not a silver bullet, it's buckshot, that we can be doing work in battery data analytics, in storage for the grid, in home energy retrofits, in all of these areas that reduce carbon emissions, and over 50 years' time, perhaps we'll at least slow down the climate change process. So we have a 50-year horizon.
And Todd, can you talk about some of the benefits you'd expect to see in the city from?
Yeah, I remember speaking on panels about 15 years ago when Wi-Fi was just now termed Wi-Fi, and it was the same discussion I had about ubiquitous access. It needs to be everywhere, and that was back when we didn't even have Wi-Fi devices that we were carrying along. But we actually did a pilot project a couple of years ago, and it's still underway right now in a small rural city in Michigan, where we partnered with the city manager as well as the local businesses. We put Wi-Fi in City Hall, the community center, and then local businesses kind of in a downtown district. This is a rural city population, 2,500, that had terrible cell signal and still does today. So data wasn't readily accessible. So we partnered up with the city and the local businesses. We put Wi-Fi access points across the whole downtown area. And just on a small scale like that, again, population 2,500, we get over 1,000 people a month that use that Wi-Fi service in downtown, which is a significant amount. So we see, 5 years from now, that kind of acting as a model and growing from city to city to city. So people do have widely accessible use of internet everywhere.
Aaron, I'll go ahead and pass it to you.
So some of the key examples and really the benefits to either the city, whether it's a municipally run utility or local jurisdictions within an IOU territory, really is enabling low to moderate income customers with technology to be successful in the new energy economy. So one of the often discussions that we have with partners is they're looking for customer solutions or demand flexibility as they grow their systems and capabilities, whether it's specifically demand response or new rate structures, and then enabling technologies for their customers to be successful on that. So in Southern California, for those that don't know, California is defaulting to time of use rates starting in 2019 in a very big way, and then continuing to roll out. So one of our biggest partnerships is with SoCal Edison and SoCal Gas around their moderate income direct install programs in multifamily units, specifically to help drive the energy savings, but it's also kind of linked to the broader effort of enabling that customer segment to be successful on time of use rates. So we have a lot of those same types of program structures, but it could also be around demand response capabilities, et cetera, to really help them be successful going forward.
There are still areas within our communities that need better solutions. And Pat, you actually brought this up on a call we all had a few weeks back. What are you seeing, or where are you feeling like there still needs to be a better solution? What are some of the areas in our communities?
So one of the ones that blows my mind that's fairly new to our incubator, it actually came out of Google X, is a company called Dandelion. Dandelion saw that homeowners who own individual homes are none of them are taking advantage of ground source heat pumps because there are so many barriers. The barriers are, and these are the things she decided to take down so that she could enable ground source heat pumps everywhere. The barriers are that there are 5 next to choke. There's so many different trades involved. You know, the excavator, the plumber, the HVAC, the electrical, I can't even remember what else. She also saw that the drilling equipment that comes in to put a ground source heat pump in your home tears up the road, it tears up the rose bushes, it tears up your yard. It was meant to drill wells that are 5,000 feet deep, and you only need a few feet to go down to 55-degree temperature underground. So she wants to right-size that equipment to something like a lawnmower. She's right-sizing the equipment that is the ground source heat pump itself so that it goes into your home and doesn't overcool or overheat. And you're actually going to be taking 55-degree refrigerant instead of outside air. Now, in the summer, the outside air could be 100 degrees. In the winter, it could be 30 degrees or less. She's always starting with 55-degree air and using that to do your heating and cooling. And then the biggest barrier was the high first cost. It costs $20,000 to $50,000 to put one of these systems in. That's crazy. So she's partnering with a bank to do project finance so that every customer who puts one of these in is only going to be paying $125 a month, winter or summer, same price. So there's certainty, you can calculate for it, you can put it in your budget. It's probably less than you're paying to cool your home now. It's brilliant, and there haven't been very many solutions for single-family homes. So that's an area that I think is really welcome, and she's growing like crazy. In fact, her company is called Dandelion because she's growing like crazy.
And Todd, what are you seeing in terms of areas that need better solutions or just haven't had that focus that probably should get some more visibility?
I think what we've seen is a lack of private sector and public partnerships, right? So it's the disconnect between local government and the local businesses itself. So we are trying to bridge that gap essentially and say, hey, we're partnering with the local businesses to put Wi-Fi in their business that serves the overall community. And then we're getting the city to help us promote that by giving the city access to analytical data that's valuable to the city. So we can, as an example, give analytics information to say this is the trend of the amount of people on this side of the street versus this side of the street. This is a traffic count, and it can all be in near real time as opposed to hiring every 5 years traffic counts, et cetera. So it's bridging that gap, and I think that as technology changes and as analytics data evolves, all of that will bridge that barrier between businesses and government.
And Aaron, what are you guys looking at? And what's next? What's on the horizon?
Yep. So one of the key barriers that we've, I would want to say, uncovered in the process of launching the Power Project is, and for those who don't know, typically within a utility, there's going to be a standard energy efficiency portfolio and then also a separate low to moderate income team or portfolio that's run separately. And for whatever reason, we have no challenges getting stakeholders, regulators, policymakers excited about kind of the vision of the power project and helping low to moderate income customers. But when you start to get down to the various levels of the operators of those programs or the implementers of those programs, and I would say this is the same all across the country, similar feedback, is they've been essentially turning the crank on those weatherization programs, for the last decade or so, and very slow to kind of up-level the technology, the enablement for those customers. So I really think, if and when you're looking at opportunities, you really do need to kind of create a process to go from start to results-driven output, so that you can actually be driving the outcome versus just talking about driving that outcome. That's been one of the unique opportunities and insights that we've found working with so many different stakeholders in the space, is that those programs have just been kind of running their course, so adding or changing can be an uphill battle.
Great. Well, we've heard a lot from the panelists, and because this has been such a topic of conversation throughout the day, I did want to open it up for a quick Q&A. We can maybe fit in 1 or 2 questions. There's a microphone in the center of the room, so I'd like to invite anybody right now, if you have a question for our panelists, to go ahead and use that mic in the middle of the room. This is a great opportunity. No questions.
We could do a selfie.
We can do a selfie. Well, any closing thoughts from any
So,
of you?
Erin, one thing we did talk about on the phone that we haven't covered was education. And we do run 2, I was really happy to see the video of the young man who was sitting over there, maybe you're still there, I don't know, who did education with very young kids, teaching them to care about their environment, to care about the food they eat, to understand, how plants grow. Because we're a university, we start a little later. We do have a program for young people at the NYCHA houses. That's New York City Housing Authority. This is very low-income people. Anyone who has graduated from high school or gotten a GED degree can come and take training in how to join the green job force. So we give them training in housing insulation and all that stuff. They learn a little bit about the whole ecosystem. And that's been wonderful. It's great to have them in our incubator, occupying the conference room. You hear these huge, loud guffaws that you don't really hear in normal business meetings. But it's wonderful to have them all over the place. And we also have something that is for professionals who are changing careers, who can come to us on evenings and weekends if they're architects, lawyers, accountants, and they can learn about the green economy and join the green economy. We give them coursework with NYU professors, who teach them about the grid, about the power markets, about building energy efficiency, about project finance, all the gaps in their knowledge that enable them to then go apprentice themselves, do a capstone project with one of our companies, and at the end they graduate, they get a certificate, and they always get jobs in the green economy. We're really growing the green economy in New York. It's very exciting.
Great, thank you, Pat. So it looks like we had somebody muster up the courage to ask one question.
Hello, this is Rolando, and I work with CPS Energy, but my question I'd like to ask is on behalf of me as a citizen, and it's for Erin and the Nest thermostats. There is other information besides the settings to temperature that the Nest thermostat collects, such as the motion detection at home to know when someone is at home or away. How much is this information used for other perhaps valuable insights, and how are other companies perhaps leveraging this information? I mean, and maybe if you can expand a little bit about the sensitivity that people may have about that information being collected by Google, and how can that, one, be make people more aware of the information that they are releasing, but 2, how can that be enabled to create even greater value?
Yeah, so a great example. And the easiest to talk about is all the demand response programs that we run. So I mentioned the program that we are a part of within CPS Energy and one of our longest partners. That's a great example where a customer's opting into that program, and as a part of that, they're agreeing to new T's and C's that are written by the utility and shared. And as in that part of that trade-off, that then the utility can have the for a few events in a hot summer, the capability to adjust their thermostat to help with grid constraints. But that's one key example of an opt-in program where there is data sharing back and forth between the utility and or their demand response aggregator to run that program. And we do all sorts of those types of programs, but they're always opt-in, so the customer knows what they're agreeing to and then enrolling into, et cetera.
In my experience for my own thermostat, I have seen significant savings, I have to say, in the order of 12 to 15% when I look at my own bill. Most of that gain has been because the thermostat is turning off and adjusting without me informing it to do those changes. And I just don't know how much people is aware that this intelligence is happening behind the stages, but they don't have the confirmation of how much has it been the savings that they, at the individual level, kind of going back to the human-centered, how much is the human informed of the actual savings that they have gained?
Yep. So just real quick on that, part of what we do is education through our monthly Nest email as well. So they get information about this past month's usage based on how that went. I actually just learned from our team that even within the Nest app, the energy usage tab within that is a top 10 use case for our customers, which to me was shocking. I came from the energy space, so I know that the opportunity of even getting customers engaged in their energy usage at all is a key driver. So it is still a very important kind of enabling technology to help customers become more aware of their energy usage and how to shift during key times.
Well, thank you all for joining this discussion. Please join me in thanking our panelists for the discussion.